Hey everyone, Mark Meckel here. Don't miss this week's BattleCry. We're going to dig deep, and I mean real deep, on what's going in Iran. It's not just the surface of the news that matters, it's getting behind the news. Hey everyone, Mark Meckler here. Welcome to the Sunday Night Battle Cry. I'm happy to be home. I'm happy to be here with you. You can see I'm home in the library where I like to be. I'm not going to be here for that long. I'm going to be out on the road. We'll talk about that later. But let's start with our call to action. This week, our call to action is about something you can do every single day. You're out there. I know you read the news. I know you're looking at Facebook. You're probably on X, probably watching YouTube. You've got all this social media stuff going on. And you see a lot of news. And so the thing I want to encourage you to do is don't take any of it at face value. Don't trust it. And I'm not telling you to trust me. You should question everything I say, especially if it doesn't seem right to you. Go out, research it on your own. But whatever news story you read, especially if it's something that makes your blood boil, I want you to dive in and go behind the news. We're going to talk later about how to use AI and some things you can do with AI. You can use AI to help you look behind the news. I just read this article. Put the link in. Ask AI, is this true? Is there anything I should question in this article? Don't just trust one AI. Use multiple AIs to do that. Go out and look for other articles. See if they back up what you're reading. Again, especially if you're starting to feel anxious or angry about something, because remember, the rage bait machine is real. That's what they're trying to do to you. Because of this call to action where I'm telling you to be a wise consumer, today, what I wanted to do is dive in on what I think is actually the most important thing going on in the world right now, geopolitically especially, but this affects us here at home. That's the war in Iran. Because we get a lot of top line headlines. CNN gives you their perspective. Fox gives you their perspective. Tucker gives you his perspective, which I think you should never take seriously. But there's a lot of perspectives out there. And so I wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive. This is something I've been following very closely. I read a lot of different people on this subject. I have a lot of thoughts on it. And so let's get started. I want to start first by talking about sort of the reshuffling of the international order that's going on. I think when we talk about Iran, when you hear pundits talk about Iran, when you hear media personalities talk about Iran, mostly they talk about it at a very surface level. Here's what I mean by that. Yes, there's a war going on in Iran. Yes, we've got a bunch of troops stationed outside in the oceans on the aircraft carriers and the destroyers and such. Yes, we've been running a lot of sorties with our Air Force. We've been doing all kinds of damage over there, and we're trying to suppress the regime, prevent them from getting nuclear weapons, prevent them from attacking our allies and their adversaries in the region. All of that stuff is true, but all of that stuff is the surface stuff. In other words, that's the game being played at the surface level that you could see, that you could read about in the newspapers, read about in the blogs or on X, but it's not the deep dive. It's not what's really going on, in my opinion. This is what I mean by looking behind the news. So if you're looking at Iran and you want to look behind the news, first of all, let's try to figure out why we're even in Iran in the first place. Because you have these fake America firsters, Megan and Tucker and Nick Fuentes and all these people who claim we shouldn't even be there in the first place. They say we're starting a war over there. So let's debunk that first. Iran has been at war with the United States of America, a declared war, by the way, for 47 years. They don't hide it. They've killed a lot of Americans. They killed a lot of Americans during the Gulf War. They were responsible for most of the IEDs in Afghanistan. Hundreds of Americans killed, thousands injured because of Iranian tech provided in that war. They've been attacking us. They attacked the USS Cole. Their proxies did. They've been attacking our folks all over the world for a long time. And they don't hide this, by the way. They don't hide the fact that they hate us. They chant death to America, obviously death to Israel. But they always say Israel's little Satan, we're big Satan. So they have been at war against the United States of America for a long time. So when you hear people say, well, Trump started this war, no, that's not correct. This war was started by Iran. It was declared by Iran on the United States many years ago, 47 years ago, roughly, when they took our embassy and took our embassy employees hostage and held them hostage for well over a year, almost a year and a half, until Ronald Reagan became president. And so it's important for you to know, if you're looking behind the news, what started this war? The Iranians started this war, not just against the United States, but by using their proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, all over the world, to destabilize the world, to cause us and our allies trouble, to kill Americans, to kill our allies all over the world. So Hamas, primary operating force inside the what are called the quote unquote occupied territories, in my opinion, really just Israel. Gaza, if you remember the history, was given to the Palestinians. I think this was a very unwise move. It had beautiful infrastructure. It had greenhouse businesses. They destroyed all of that immediately. They've taken billions of dollars in international aid, including from Israel, by the way, and spent it to build a terror infrastructure to attack Israel. So remember that Hamas, funded by international money, but primarily run by Iran through their proxies. The same is true of Hezbollah on the northern border of Israel. Hezbollah has taken over Lebanon. Lebanon, by the way, used to be a Christian country before Hezbollah took it over and radical Islamists took it over. They ruined that country. They destroyed Beirut, which used to be one of the most beautiful cities in the world, used to be called the Paris of the Middle East. And so Iran, responsible for the destruction of Lebanon, the inclusion of a radical Islamist cult inside Lebanon, also attacking Israel all the time, also an enemy of the United States. Iran has also armed and trained the Houthis. You know what the Houthis have been doing in the Red Sea? Shooting at American ships, shooting at other ships, trying to destroy the ship trafficking through that area in the Red Sea. Now you have the Iranians doing that in the Strait of Hormuz. All of this, not, I repeat, not the fault of the United States. All of this going on before the United States attacked Iran. And so this is our response, finally, and I think finally is the right word, President Trump saying, okay, we're done. We're not playing this game anymore. Diplomacy has failed. The JCPOA, whereby President Obama gave cash, $1.5 billion in cash on pallets to the Iranian government, where he allowed them a path to a nuclear weapon, the worst foreign policy deal in the history of the United States of America. That was the precursor. Obviously, Trump said no to that deal when he got removed from office. Legitimately or illegitimately, I'll let you make the call on that. I don't think that was a legitimate election. But when he got removed from office, then Biden put this stuff back in place and allowed the Iranians to do whatever they want. So what's going on right now is taking out the Iranian threat that reshuffles the entire international order. I don't want you to think about just Iran, right? You have the Qataris, Qatar, however you pronounce it. They are now speaking out against Iran. They've been the Iranians' biggest ally. They are another proxy for Iran. They're now speaking out against Iran because they believe it's in their best interest to do so. Dubai speaking out and allied against Iran. Saudi Arabia allied and speaking against Iran. You have Jordan allied and speaking against Iran. So you have all these Middle Eastern countries around Israel speaking out against Iran. Why? The why is because they see Iran as their biggest threat, not the United States. We may not be close friends, but they are definitely allies of convenience. We see the Abraham Accords, whereby Trump was working to spread peace and prosperity in the Middle East. The reason we had the Gaza Strip incident where they broke through the wall and slaughtered 1,500 Israelis was because they were trying to prevent the Abraham Accords from spreading to Saudi Arabia, and they've done that. Now, that will come back. Saudi Arabia will enter the Abraham Accords, as will likely all these other Arab countries. And so you're seeing a reshuffling of the international order in the Middle East. You're going to see these countries at peace with Israel, at peace with the United States. We're going to have free trade in the region. It is going to be a very prosperous time for the Middle East. Now let's expand that. Step back, go to the 30,000 foot level. What does that mean for the world? Well, it means a lot for the world. China used Iran as a proxy state. And so you have the Chinese, who are our greatest geopolitical foe, using Iran as a proxy state. Russia did the same. When Iran completely falls, and it will, but even now, China has been cut off. Russia has been cut off. For China, by the way, 13% of their national oil and gas use flows through the Strait of Hormuz, right? So they have a special deal right now with the Iranians, and they're going to lose that deal. And their oil is going to stop flowing unless they cooperate with us. And that definitely hurts their economy. And so I think this is an incredible thing for the reshuffle of the international order. Trump understands geopolitics better than any president I've ever seen. He knows that he has to weaken China. He's doing that by weakening Iran, by hopefully taking out the Iranian regime. Hopefully we end up with a regime in charge of Iran that's more friendly to the West. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. And that is to the detriment of China and Russia, both of them. So this is an incredible thing. When you look at what's going on with China, it's also Venezuela. China was very active in Venezuela, had invested billions of dollars in Venezuela. Russia was very active in Venezuela. Trump has neutered all of that. He essentially has a regime change in Venezuela by taking out Maduro, by working with Delcy Rodriguez, who was the erstwhile vice president, explaining to her she's going to be taken out or she's going to cooperate. She seems to be cooperating. We're controlling the oil flow out of Venezuela. By the way, oil flow that formerly went to, you guessed it, China. Not a huge amount, but 3% of their oil came from Venezuela. But we are choking down and getting control of the flow of international oil all over the globe. What does that do for us? It secures our position as the worldwide hegemon, the one and only international power. Really, we're the only international superpower, and this is securing our position. It removes China and Russia from Venezuela, which was very important to us to remove them from the Americas, right? We can't have those guys operating freely in the Americas. And so they are now being removed from the Americas, being pushed back in the Americas. How about Cuba off of our eastern shore? Cuba is a communist dictatorship, has been for a long time. It's a thorn in our side. The Russians have operated freely in Cuba. China operates in Cuba. They have now been cut off, right? Because Cuba's oil all came from Venezuela. No more oil from Venezuela. Cuba is shutting down as we speak. I think you're going to see a new regime, probably a regime change along the lines of what we've seen in Venezuela. Doesn't take military force, isn't going to take an invasion. It's just going to take the leadership over there deciding, you know what? We don't have a government anymore. We don't have an economy anymore. Our people are not going to tolerate this anymore. And if we turn towards the United States, we're going to have prosperity and freedom in Cuba. And so I think you're going to see Cuba fall. So what we're seeing is a reshuffling of the geopolitical order for the better in the world. So when you look at Iran, don't just look, oh, there's a war in Iran. Don't just look at the surface level. That's what the news wants you to see. That's what the naysayers want you to see. Look at the entire reshuffling of the geopolitical order. All right, let's look at number 2 in Iran, and that's the testing of weapons systems. We are watching in real time what is essentially a semi-proxy war against China. It's United States weapon systems. No, it's Iranians using Chinese weapon systems. So this is really important because it has geopolitical consequences, not just for who's going to buy the weapon systems, but when China looks at the U.S. vis-a-vis the Taiwan Straits, and we are an ally of Taiwan, and they think maybe we should take Taiwan, they're going to look at how their weapon systems performed against U.S. weapon systems, and they're going to see, well, they didn't. And I can tell you, Xi Jinping right now, he's freaking out. And he's freaking out because his generals, his technologists have told him how incredible their military is, their military systems, their weapon systems are. And now he's seen a real-time test, and he's seen them completely get crushed by the United States and our weapon systems. Not just our weapon systems, but our incredible warfighters and our warfighting system. And I mean that from President Trump on down as the commander-in-chief, Pete Hegseth as the Secretary of War, a dear friend of Convention of States, longtime friend of mine. And we look at everybody on down from there. Everybody in our warfighting machine is far superior to the Chinese warfighting machine. So that reorders the way the international order works. When everybody knows they look at China for weapon systems to stand off specifically against the United States, that doesn't look so good anymore. Let's talk about intelligence and how intelligence gathering works. Intelligence gathering used to be entirely human. In other words, it required people on the ground who were going out and gathering intelligence, and that still exists, and it's really important. Then it moved into space. That was probably late 1950s, early 60s with satellite technology. Very rudimentary back then. We actually have friends who were involved in the early days of that technology. And they were actually literally taking pictures from space on film and actually returning those film canisters to the Earth and developing those pictures. It developed ultimately into electronic recording and transmission, and the satellites got better and better. And pretty soon, you could see a lot from space. And then, like today, you can see everything from space. So that was what I would describe as phase two. Now you have human intelligence, you have electronic intelligence in space, and now I would say the final frontier is complete and total digital intelligence. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, in Iran has a system of cameras all over their major cities, especially, which are monitored by the government. And apparently, the United States and Israel have hacked into those cameras, which means we've been able to watch the entire country in real time through their own surveillance cameras. This is part of the reason we know where all of their leaders are all the time. Between human intelligence, and there's a lot of that on the ground in Iran because a lot of people don't like the regime. You add that to space intelligence, satellite intelligence. We've got pictures all the time. We've got satellites over Iran watching them. And then finally, now what we have is the ability through the internet, through IP addresses, through the tracking of cell phones, through the tracking of digital intelligence, the ability to know where almost everybody is all the time that we want to know in our enemies. Now, by the way, I say that with confidence, and I mean it with confidence, but should also make us nervous because that same intelligence gathering can, and I believe has been used against us here in the US by our government. But let's put that aside for another day. Let's talk about how it's being used in Iran. The most interesting example of this was not in Iran, but it was in Lebanon. This happened very recently over the last few days. In a 10-minute period, over 100 live fire targets were struck in Beirut and across Lebanon. And this was virtually the entire leadership team of Hezbollah. So Hezbollah has been very neutered over the last 6 months to a year by the Israelis, maybe going back even further. But now the Israelis all at once in 10 minutes took out virtually everybody in leadership in Hezbollah. They went dark. And the way they were able to do that is they track everybody digitally. So all of these people are using some form of digital communications, and the Israelis have hacked that. So at some moment in time, they knew where enough of the leadership was, where they were stable, where they were moving, exactly pinpoint locations, and they launched a joint strike on 100 targets all at once. All at once so that nobody could warn anybody else, all at once so they could wipe out all the leadership, and they did it. And this shows how absolutely incredible, especially Israeli intelligence is, but U.S. intelligence operating jointly with Israeli intelligence. I mean, we are far superior to everybody else in the world. That doesn't mean we should sit on our hands or rest on our laurels, but we got to understand that the intelligence battlefield has entirely changed. What's this mean in Iran and in Gaza and in Lebanon? It means that the folks there who are opposing the Israelis, who are opposing the U.S., who are our enemies, have to go back to analog. In other words, they have to write notes. They have to have couriers. They have to go by hand and speak to people. Well, we, and especially in Iran, I would say, but the Israelis have spies all over the place. We're watching their leadership. They're watching the leadership. We know where the people are moving. That stuff can be infiltrated and has been infiltrated many, many times. You have all the risks of human intel that you've had forever, and it slows everything down. So when your enemy, meaning the enemy of Hezbollah or the enemy of Hamas, is operating at digital speeds like we and the Israelis are, and you have to operate by writing notes on paper, who do you think has the advantage? So I think what you're seeing is it's absolutely incredible. The global order is being reshuffled. The weapon systems have now been proved. Ours are way better than the Chinese or the Russian. Our intelligence gathering is absolutely incredible. It's moment by moment on the ground. Now I want to talk about negotiations and diplomacy. For decades now, Americans have negotiated, well, virtually in the same way that Europeans do, which is we write strongly worded letters. We say, we don't like what you're doing. It's not according to international law, and we're offended by it. And someday, if you keep doing it, we might take some very strong action against you. We won't say what that is. We won't threaten you. We're just going to say, we sternly tell you you should stop. That's literally been the approach to tyrants and to terrorists all over the world for most of my life, I would say. There are exceptions in between. Trump, I think, in his first term was an exception. But generally speaking, this is the diplomacy and the negotiating style of the Western world. We've got to ask ourselves, has it worked? The answer is no, of course not. What we've allowed to happen in the world is radical Islam is thriving. The Chinese are thriving. Terrorism is thriving. The world economy has been destabilized because we've been weak and feckless. We don't understand those that we are conducting diplomacy with and negotiating against. And the one person who stepped up that actually understands it and understands how you have to conduct quote unquote diplomacy in this era and with these kind of people is Donald Trump. The president has been extraordinary at this. He understands the language of terrorists. He understands the language of the radical Islamists. He understands the language of dictators, and he uses it to his and to our advantage. Now, unfortunately, you have the panicans, some on the right and mostly on the left, that freak out every time he does it. Oh, my God, the president swore. It's so unpresidential. Oh, my God, he's threatening to wipe out a civilization. It's so horrible. Oh, my God, he's threatening to go to war. He's threatening to bomb them into that. It's so terrible. It's so horrible. You know what kind of language that the mullahs understand or the IRGC understands? They understand when a guy like Trump, who is unpredictable and does very aggressive military things when he feels he needs to, they understand the threats. They understand he might actually do the things that he threatens to do. They don't care when we write a strongly worded letter. They don't care when people say, oh, we don't like what you're doing. It's offensive to the world order. It's not according to international law. They don't care about any of that stuff. They do care that they might get blown to smithereens, as Trump would say, or blown into the Stone Ages. Maybe that's not even enough to make them care. But generally speaking, that kind of language is the language they speak. Remember, they've been chanting death to America and death to Americans for decades. They've been threatening us verbally and in writing directly for decades. Trump is the first person who understands how this game is played. And so diplomacy and negotiation are different depending on who you're working with, right? The level of rhetoric that's required, the level of threat that's required, the level of force that's required is different depending on who your negotiating partner is. You're going to negotiate differently with the UK than you're going to negotiate with the mullahs or the IRGC. Now, I think both have to be dealt with pretty severely now because they're both messing around and they're going to need to find out if they keep messing around. This is true, I think, of the UK. It's true of the EU nations, generally speaking. That's not a military threat, but there should be genuine threats. And I think Trump is doing a good job of this. Like, why are we even in NATO? Like, what's the purpose if you guys won't support this? So this kind of diplomacy, this sort of brass knuckle diplomacy that Trump brings to the table, this is real diplomacy for our era. It's not some kind of fake blue blood elitist diplomacy. This is what's required to get things done. How do I know that? How can I say that with such certainty? Because Trump has done things that no president, frankly, no human being in my lifetime has ever done. Trump has ended 8 wars. Now, seriously, ended 8 wars. No president, no international leader has ever done that in history. Trump ended a war between Pakistan and India, 2 nuclear powers, probably saved millions of people. The Pakistani president actually credits him with this. They were firing weapons at each other. This was going from skirmish to war, and Trump ended it. He's ended wars all over the planet because he's willing to say the things that no other leader's been willing to say. And so that's how I know it's working. How do I know it's working? Because you have Iran pretty close to on its knees right now, right? You have the Palestinians, Hamas, in Gaza on their knees right now. How do I know it's working? Because you have the nations of the EU and NATO ponying up to what they agreed to, 2% of their GDP into the budget of NATO. And in fact, he's now pushing for 5%. I think it should be a lot more. I think NATO should pay 50% of the budget. The EU should pay 50% of the budget of NATO. But it's Trump's harsh language. It's Trump's harsh demeanor. It's Trump pushing and being willing to do the things that freak people out, that the snowflakes can't handle, the pearl clutchers can't handle. That's how I know Trump's style of negotiation and diplomacy are winning. They are winning. All right. The next thing about the war in Iran that you hear a lot about is you hear about the economy. I want to talk a little bit about the economy, short and long term. Short term, it's causing some hurt for people. Fuel is up at least $1 a gallon, some places more than that. For average person, that really hurts. You fill your tank, you got 15, 18, 20 gallons there, $20 every time you fill your car up. Fill your car up a couple of times a week. That's $40 a week. Do that 4 times a month. It's $160 out of your pocket. That's a lot of money to most people. And so that definitely hurts. Important to remember, oil prices are up, not because we don't produce enough oil. We produce plenty of oil. We produce plenty of gasoline. Our oil prices are up because it's an international commodity. So it definitely hurts our economy. But if we're going to reshuffle the entire geopolitical order to our benefit, and this is definitely in the long run to our benefit, weaken China, weaken Russia, give us control over the oil flow out of Venezuela, give us control over the oil flow out of Iran, help us to control the geopolitical energy cycle. We do that, that will benefit our economy massively. There's going to be a little pain. And I'm going to acknowledge there's going to be a little pain, but I would say Trump has to get a handle on this before the midterms, probably at least a couple of months, maybe say September. He has to have things kind of leveled out, gas prices coming back down. But the economy is actually doing well, added 168,000 jobs by the last jobs report, like quadruple the number of jobs they thought it would add. So we're doing okay. So that's the economy. All right, let's talk about now number 6 on the war in Iran, the America First America haters. That's Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Megyn Kelly and Nick Fuentes. These people, they won't say it like this. They hate America. They hate America. I'd say it to any of their faces. I know Tucker. They hate America. How do I know that? Because they're siding with Iran, because they're siding with Russia, because they're siding with China. They won't say this, but in the way they talk, they're siding with our geopolitical enemies. The mullahs play tapes of Tucker to their people criticizing America. Tucker has said that President Trump is the Antichrist, that he's anti-Christian. Doesn't criticize the mullahs, doesn't criticize the 40,000 plus people that got killed, doesn't criticize the Qataris, doesn't criticize Dubai, doesn't criticize any of radical Islam. In fact, he's now seemingly very warm towards Islam. Megyn Kelly sort of toes that line. I don't think she's a leader. She's more of a follower. Candace Owens, crazy Candy. She's just a full nut job at this point. Hates the U.S., hates Trump, hates anything pro-America, really. And so what I would say to you about them, don't listen to them. They're all falling. Their numbers are falling off. The crazies are going to stay attracted to them. Don't be one of the crazies. All right. Last thing I want to say about the war in Iran, it's going well. This is the best, most effective, cleanest military operation in modern history. Now, I don't want to minimize the casualties. I believe our count right now is that we've lost 12 of our brave soldiers and airmen and different members of different branches in this war so far. 12 is 12 too many. To those of you who are from military families, and you have folks overseas fighting in this conflict, God bless you. And I pray for your peace of mind, your peace of heart in a way that only the Lord can bring. I can't even imagine what that must be like to have your kids and your husbands and your wives and your brothers and sisters in harm's way. So I pray for you, pray for your peace. I pray for their safety. And I thank you for your sacrifice. You meaning the veterans, you meaning the people who are out there fighting actively right now, but you also meaning the families that are behind that have to watch this and have to wonder and have to worry. I love you because I love America, and without you, there is no America. But the war is going well right now. You should be hopeful for the future. A better world is being fashioned because of what's going on. That takes some sacrifice, it takes some fight, it takes some blood and treasure. Unfortunately, hopefully, very little blood and not so much treasure for what the return is going to be. But I would say the war is going very well. Iran has been decimated, their military has been decimated, their air force is non-existent. Their navy's at the bottom of the ocean. Their forces, what are left of them, are scattered. Their ability to wreak havoc in the region has been decimated. They are now, some of them, trying to find a way to peace. And I think this is very, very, very good for the world. So you should be hopeful. I'm never happy about war, but you should be hopeful. And you should be glad that we have a president that's willing to do what it takes. So that's my summary of the war in Iran. You might have a different take. I'd be happy to have your comments on it, but that's how I see it this week. I'm going to switch to convention of states now. Ohio and North Carolina are both on the move. I think we're going to pass both those states this year. Ohio, probably not until mid-summer to end of summer. They're heading into their primaries. There's only a couple more sessions left. They are a year-round legislature, but I think things look very good in Ohio. And then I think things look very good in North Carolina. In North Carolina, we've already passed the House, pending in the Senate. I'm hoping that Senator Berger, who is now, I hate to use this term, but he's a lame duck senator. He lost his primary, but he'll be the leader of the Senate through this session until he's replaced in the general election. I think I know him. He's never been against us. He's a good guy. We'll see what happens. I'm hoping he brings it up and we have the votes. Make North Carolina number 21, make Ohio number 22. Next week, by the way, I'm going to be in Montana. I'll be in Great Falls, Hamilton, and Kalispell. I'll be traveling with my brother from another mother, Rick Green. So I'm excited about that. So check out our website and you can see the Mark Meckler, Rick Green, No Gas tour. Now, I don't mean that on a personal level. I mean that hopefully we won't run out of gas again. We did run out of gas previously. It was not good. It was bad. It was kind of embarrassing, but it was really funny, actually. All right, I'm going to go to questions because that's my favorite part. But before we go to questions, there's a couple of announcements I want to make. First of all, we have a huge, and I do mean huge, blowout sale going on at article5outfitters.com. That's article5outfitters.com. And we're liquidating a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to be cutting our inventory back. So the stuff you're not going to see again, you can go again to article5outfitters.com. We launched that this last Friday. When the items sell out, a lot of them are just going to be gone forever. I promise you, prices will never be this low again. We're going to give you a free gift with every purchase while supplies last. So grab the stuff while it's available. Go to the clearance section at article5outfitters.com. We have an open letter to Trump. This is super important also. President Trump has spoken out in support of Convention of States by posting on Truth Social, but we want to bring his participation up. That letter right now is pretty close to 150,000 signatures. I want you to think about that. That's about 10,000 pounds of paper if we printed out every petition. We're thinking about doing that. And we want to bring at least 15,000 more signatures in April. If you haven't signed it, go sign it. conventionofstates.com/Trump. And if you haven't done this before, like this video, tap subscribe, ring the bell, scream out your window, whatever you got to do, let people know and make sure you're getting this content. If you want to ask me a question, go to conventionofstates.com, ask Mark. You literally can ask me anything. Ask me about the dogs. Ask me about the kids. I don't know. Ask me about embarrassing things in my past. Whatever you want to do. I have actually one more thing I want to do, which is a quick feature on AI. And I'm reminded of this because I got some feedback on AI by some of our viewers. Grateful Prep SNJ on YouTube said AI gives a lot of information too, but I do like and use Grok. And I do like and use Grok. I would say Grok is my favorite because I think it's the most truthful. It's the most balanced. It's not always true. You can't be sure it's not misinformation. If it's important, check it against other sources. James Chrismanick 3676 says, I use Google AI and also Grok. I like using AI to improve my ability for apologetic speaking to others. It's a great way to learn how to form questions to reveal one's true point of view on a subject. See, this is one of the things I like that James is saying. Last week, I talked to you about AI and I said, use it to learn. Like, not to just give you answers, use it to teach you skills. And here, James is using it to teach him to be a better apologist. And I think that's incredible. I found it super, super helpful when I'm doing theological research, when I'm trying to understand my Bible. Again, I don't trust it. So I always use multiple sources, right? I go to primary sources. Here's another tip when using AI, because every week I'm going to try and give you a tip or two. One of the things that's most important when you're using AI is your query. Like, what do you say to AI to get an answer? The more thorough, the more informational, the more context you provide in your query, the better answer you're going to get. I promise you that. So take time to write your query. Don't write it like you used to write a Google search where you would just say, give me information on my local grocery stores. Write it more thoroughly. I'm looking for a grocery store within 15 miles of me that focuses on natural foods. The reason is I live a natural foods lifestyle. I want organic produce. So seek out the things that give me the best organic produce. I do take vitamins all the time. Give it as much context as you can. And then, and this is the real trick, tell it, write a prompt for me that will give me the best possible result. Don't use that as your prompt. Give it a bunch of context and then ask the AI to write the prompt. The AI knows exactly how to prompt itself best. So if you ask it to write the prompt, read the prompt that comes up, go, yeah, that looks pretty good. Then say, execute this prompt. You're going to get a better prompt, generally speaking. You might still need to add stuff to it. Better prompt, better result. So that's my AI tip for the week. Let AI write your prompts for you. All right, we're going to go to questions now. My questions, let's see, what do we got? Tracy Grabiak says, Governor DeSantis says the balanced budget amendment folks have 28 states, but I've heard Mike Farris say he doubts that would stand up because of aggregation problems. Can you discuss the 28 state claim for the BBA and which states would likely aggregate or not and why? Tracy, I can't get into that much detail here, but I can tell you part of the problem is that the language on their 28 states applications are very different. Remember, these have come over roughly a 40-year period. And so some states said one thing, some states have said another thing. That makes it what's called an aggregation problem. That means it's not 100% clear that the states all meant the same thing. And I think there's probably at least 4 or 5 states that they're counting that can't really be aggregated. There absolutely will be litigation around that. I think we have an article by Mike Farris on our website on this. So if you go to conventionofstates.com, go to the resources tab, search aggregation. I think you'll find the article that Mike Farris wrote about this. They do have aggregation problems. There is going to be litigation. So what we do to prevent that is we make sure every single state passes the same application. No aggregation problems, hopefully no litigation. Scott Lewis says, after our defeat in the South Dakota House, I wonder if the problem here has to do with the fact that our state gets a third of its state's budget covered by federal dollars. Is there a way to alleviate concerns about this? Well, Scott, I spent a lot of time in that legislature. I've done it many, many, many years. I've been there a lot the last 2 years in a row. I never heard one person mention that because we're not telling the federal government that they can't send money to South Dakota. In fact, my argument would be send all the money you want to South Dakota, just block grant it. Don't tell them how to spend it. I don't have a problem with that. Freeze spending right where it's at. Send the block grant straight to South Dakota, and then you don't have a problem with that. And I've never, not one time, heard a legislator say that's the issue. Their issue is strictly runaway convention. We've talked about that repeatedly. It's ridiculous and absurd. Here's the other thing that I think is important for you to know. Those who are in the Republican Party who oppose us, and they are slim minority in the party that oppose us, they stand with the Democrats. Almost all, not all, but almost all Democrats vote against us. Certainly in South Dakota, almost all of them, if not all of them, voted against us. So I don't understand why the Republicans are standing with the Democrats. That's how they defeat us. Almost all of the Democrats in the Texas legislature voted against us. This is true almost always all across the country. Now, important to say, there are Democrats who understand this isn't a partisan issue and they vote for us. In Hawaii, we have a bunch of Democrats who vote for us. There are other states in the Northeast where Democrats vote for us because what they want to do is take power away from the federal government and give it back to their state. They want term limits. They want a balanced budget amendment, and they want more power in their state. So shouldn't be partisan, but for some reason, a lot of Democrats oppose it, and some Republicans stand with Democrats. I don't get it. Annie Polito says, it's so obvious John Thune is a rhino and a Trump MAGA hater. He's purposely avoiding passing the SAVE Act. Can Trump replace him as the majority leader? Actually, no. Trump has no input over who the majority leader is. That's up to the caucus. It's up to the Republicans in the Senate to choose. The problem is there is not another senator that could get the majority of the votes necessary to remove Thune and become leader. Unfortunately, that's just the political reality. Reality is an acquired taste. Sometimes it's bitter, but we have to accept it. That's just where we're at right now. So we got to elect a bunch of better people. But more importantly, we got to call a convention of states, right? That's where we're at. We got to call a convention of states. If you haven't signed the petition yet, make sure you go ahead and sign the petition at conventionofstates.com. More importantly, I want you to volunteer. We need more volunteers. We need them in every state, whether your state's already passed, we're protecting the resolution, and we're doing other great conservative stuff. We're in a state like South Dakota, North Carolina, Ohio. We're pushing towards passage. Iowa's on my target list, Montana, Wyoming. If you're one of those states, I need you to go not only sign the petition, but click on the Take Action tab. When you take action, what I mean by that is you're going to volunteer, you're going to get involved, you're going to find your political family, you're going to have a great time. I might just meet you on the road. If you're going to be in Montana next week, come to one of our meetings. Look forward to seeing you guys out there. God bless you, and I'll see you next week.